So finally, the Warriors are able to make their offseason moves official, and their biggest move is no doubt Al Horford. At first glance, everyone thinks this move makes no difference because of his age. That concern is definitely valid. I'm going to tell you why everyone is paying too much attention to the war of attrition and not enough about the backup that he's going to provide to the Warriors. There are many reasons why this move helps the Warriors, and on any given night, if their starting five stays healthy, they have a shot at beating anybody. The Warriors haven't had a real big man in a very long time. Their last real viable big was DeMarcus Cousins. That happened in 2019. Before that, it was Andrew Bogut, and he was the perfect basketball fit for the Warriors. Fast forward to now, we've only had players that rotate in and out from the center position. But now acquiring Al Horford, the Warriors have a real big. Someone who is not only big enough to play the position, but has also played the position throughout his entire career. This is perfect because what this now unlocks is a lot of scheme versatility on the defensive end. Despite all of the spacing the floor benefits, which we'll talk about later, the real benefit here is the defensive end. Steve Kerr and the coaching staff can now go to a multitude of options against many different teams. A front line of Al Horford, Draymond Green, and Jimmy Butler is as good of a defensive front line as you'll see in the league. Draymond has played the 5 for a majority of the last 3 seasons. He's 6'6", maybe even 6'5". Doing that can easily wear the body down through an 82-game season, plus the playoffs. But now that you have Al Horford playing the 5, this slots Draymond at the 4, which is actually where he belongs. Draymond is an elite help side defender. He's known for being able to cover ground defensively, having one foot in the paint, and being able to close out the shooters. On the other hand, Al Horford is good at guarding ball screens. He's one of the most mobile bigs in the league, despite being 40. He can guard much quicker players in space without fouling. He does it by beating guys to spots. He doesn't try to cut him off, he'll beat him to a spot and use his length to contest. So imagine that. Al Horford is guarding ball screens, Draymond is the low man, and you also have Jimmy Butler back there assisting Draymond. That is lethal. But let's say Al Horford is having issues guarding in space, well that's not a problem because now you can put Draymond on the opposing 5 and he can go back to guarding pick and roll, and then now you put Al Horford in Draymond's position, which he's perfectly capable of doing. He can still cover ground, protect the rim, and close out the shooters. Boston did this frequently to hide him away from being targeted. They'll place him on a non-shooter and have him play help side. But we're not done yet because let's say both Horford and Draymond are having issues guarding in space. They're either giving up baskets or in foul trouble. You can actually put Jimmy Butler up top and put both Draymond and Horford in the backside. And for people that are about to say, yo, chill out, you're pushing it. No, I'm not. Because if you remember correctly, last year when Jimmy played the 4 alongside Draymond, there were matchups when he was guarding the 5. This only happens when we play against centers that are non-factors on offense. So for example, Jimmy guarded Rudy Gobert last year in the playoffs. He guarded Zach Edey in the play-in game, and for the most part, he did just fine. It's definitely not an option as a base scheme, but it is an option if needed. And in general, this naturally puts Jimmy Butler back into a POA role. Because there was no center last year, he had to play more help side than he wanted to. Now he can play help side and play more of a secondary POA type of role. Not to mention, I haven't even mentioned any type of zone. We know the Warriors play a lot of zone, and oh boy do they have a plethora of options. I truly believe that if this team, at minimum, isn't a top 10 defensive team, but really I should say top 5, they're selling themselves short. The reason why I'm saying top 10 is because this group is likely going to miss a good chunk of games, and that can skew the data. I also think this team has the potential to be a good defensive playmaking team. Draymond has ranked at the top when it comes to stocks per game. Jimmy has notoriously ranked high in steals per game. Steph has typically ranked high in steals per game as well. Not so much these last few years, but still a good off-ball defender. Melton, who we also acquired, has ranked high in steals outside of his last 2 seasons. The same goes for Moody and GP2 on the ball. That's naturally going to help the offense by generating easy scoring opportunities when the half-court offense doesn't have anything going. I think the challenges defensively are playing traditional coverages. The Warriors still haven't addressed their point of attack issues. Moody is ideally the guy that should take on that responsibility, but he still has ways to go. He doesn't stand out as a reliable POA defender. He has his own issues that he needs to address this season. The next best guy is Melton, but he's recovering from his ACL tear. Who knows when or if he'll be ready to take on that kind of role. GP2 has declined to the point where he's no longer good enough to fulfill that kind of role. The absence of POA defense is going to make it hard for the Warriors to have Al Horford or Draymond Green sit back in a drop. These guys just cannot navigate screens to be able to protect their bigs. We saw this in the Minnesota series last year, and that can easily put your defense in a blender. The second issue is Draymond's help side. We just discussed how valuable Draymond's help side defense is, but a big problem that he has had in the past is overhelping. Because his instincts are always to help, he tries to be one step ahead, but oftentimes, that can lead to a lot of open shots or your defense being in a blender. If he helps too early, that means the help behind him is not going to be on time. Thus, what actually should be a superpower then turns into a liability. But the main selling point of acquiring Al Horford was the fact that he's a stretch 5. The Warriors have long desired a stretch big because they understand how much of a game changer it is. We saw just how impactful Quinton Post was able to be, despite a ton of deficiencies in different areas. He started in some games just off of his shooting ability alone. So if he can do that, imagine what a guy like Al Horford can do as a much better basketball player. His value benefits one person, and that person is Steph. Horford is going to be a dangerous two-man partner with Steph. At this stage in his career, Steph is still feared like he's still in his prime. He still draws two to the ball in multiple bodies, better than anyone else in the league. If Steph and Horford play pick and roll, Horford is guaranteed to either have an open shot or he's in a position to play make. That depends on whether or not he pops into space or rolls to the basket. He can perfectly do both. That is going to alleviate the amount of pressure that Steph sees on the ball. Or let's say Steph is off the ball and he's coming off a pin down. If the defense top locks him from using the screen, if Horford is the one setting the screen, then Horford is going to have an open shot because the big has to drop back or else Steph is going to get an easy layup backdoor. And if he doesn't, well then Steph will just go backdoor. The defense will not have a viable answer for that coverage besides bringing over a third defender. Or if they play get action where Steph throws the ball to Horford and he chases it, the big has to be up because of Horford's spacing. And then at that point it's the same process again. Or let's say the defense switched the pick and roll and they have a 5-man guarding Steph and a smaller player on Horford. In years past, if this happened, Steph would have to ISO to get a bucket. Now, Steph doesn't have to do that. Throw Al Horford the ball, and he can post up a mismatch. Overall, this move benefits Steph tremendously. You have a pick and roll partner who can shoot, play off the catch, and play elite drive and kick basketball because of his time in Boston. But unfortunately, the people who will likely not benefit are Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green. One of the main reasons why playing Draymond at the 5 is a good idea is because you can prevent the defense from ignoring him. Opposing defenses want Draymond to shoot, remember that. So if you play him at the 5, he's going to play pick and roll with Steph. Because he's actively a part of the action, the defense can't ignore him. But now bringing on Al Horford, if he's going to play pick and roll with Steph, that means Draymond is going to be away from the ball sitting in the corner. That means that the defense can easily help and send an extra defender early to prevent the two-man game between Steph and Horford. The same applies to Jimmy. Both Draymond and Jimmy will be sitting in the corner and they'll have to make jump shots. Both of them are obligated to shoot over 35% from 3 in order for the defense to remain viable. And although Draymond has shown the ability to at least still be a respectable shooter, you just don't want him shooting the ball. The same goes for Jimmy. He shot 40% 2 seasons ago and peaced out. Even if they involve either one of them in a 3-man action with Steph and Horford, that still leaves Jimmy or Dre out of the play. They can put Jimmy or Dre in a playmaking role where they're the offensive hub, but again, only one of them can do that. One of them is going to have to be away from the play. I also can't see any action with Jimmy and Horford being effective. The defense is likely going to just switch it. In the Minnesota series, it was clear that Jimmy couldn't attack bigs in space. Horford would be trying to post up a bigger wing, and it's just not a good strategy. Everything is either going to involve Steph, or both Jimmy and Dre have to make shots. It's that simple. Or if Jimmy has the ball, he's going to need to be more aggressive. But we already know, the regular season and being aggressive don't go hand in hand for Jimmy. But the massive stain on this team, besides Jimmy and Draymond's jump shooting ability, is the fact that they're the oldest team in the league. They're the real unction here, not the Clippers. And people are not wrong for being concerned about this. This is a legitimate concern. Considering how Steph went down in the playoffs last year, and Jimmy to an extent, it's for sure a concern. It's for sure something to look out for. For 4 starters to be over the age of 35, that is a risky game to play. However, there's a lot more that goes into this than people think. First of all, yes, the injury concerns are valid. If they get injured, this team is likely done. It's not going to go anywhere. But if they do stay healthy, if they are ready and 100% come playoff time, they can beat any team in the league. If they can sort out that vacant shooting guard position and have a legit starting 5, they have a legit shot at beating anybody. I've already listed all of the reasons why, and as long as they can replicate the same production as they did last year, they can compete with anybody. So as much as the injury side of things do suck, the other side of the coin is just as valuable if things go right. It's certainly an even trade-off in terms of severity. If things go bad, then yeah, this team is likely done, but if things go right, this team can certainly go all the way. Secondly, a lot of people are saying that acquiring Al Horford was a bad move because he's 40. Well, let me ask those people a question. If the Warriors didn't get Al Horford, who would have been available for the Warriors? Any other viable big in the league was never within reach of the Warriors. Al Horford was the closest. Guys like Gafford, Naz Reid, Nikola Vucevic, and Jaren Jackson Jr. were ultimately rumors. They were not only never going to become a Warrior, but they either wanted big deals or the basketball fit wasn't there, like Al Horford. The truth is the Warriors are worse without Horford. Draymond would have to continue to be the starting center. That is not what we want. If you compare the roster from last season to this season, the Warriors did get better. It's just there are a ton of factors that can go wrong. Because on paper, they did improve. And if Horford is going to sit out some games or not play back-to-backs, then so be it. That's going to come with the territory with an older group. We're not going to expect these guys to play all 82 games. And for Horford, he's been available for the last 2 years. He's played 60 games in both seasons, despite load management. On top of that, his production hasn't tanked in any way because of his age. He can still shoot, defend, play make, and even play enough rotational minutes. He's played it around 27 minutes in Boston last season. That's not great. Ideally, you would want him to play close to 30, but 27 is still solid for playing half a quarter, or maybe it's actually a little over. The whole point is that he's not at a stage where he's so old that he can't play and help the team win. As long as they secure a spot just outside of the play-in, or even in the play-in, they have a real shot at making the playoffs and a puncher's chance to win the title.